Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to tear down some race saws. Well, they're not race saws yet, but they're Echoes. So maybe that disqualifies them from being a race saw. But we're going to try. So we have CS450, CS520. These are both 3 cubic inch saws. And by the time we're all done with this, we'll have something that's hopefully fast enough to compete with other gas saws. But we'll get into it, take a closer look at them. Alright, here they are, a little bit closer. 450, 520. 450 is kind of a neat saw. We'll see once we tear it down. But, welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you've been here a while, you'll remember one of the first videos I showed my spare parts box. If you're new here, hi, I'm Joe. I have way too many part saws. But I think that's common with the chainsaw stuff. So we'll get into a teardown. My end goal is going to be to build on this chassis. Do believe the chassis are similar, but we'll find that out as we're tearing them down. But the 520 has the larger piston cylinder. See, it's a clamshell setup. So today, we're going to work on getting this piston cylinder out. And we're going to chop the top off a lot nicer than this one. I messed this one up. Luckily it was scored and I really didn't want to use it anyway. At least we'll say that. But we'll tear both of these down. Pick the good parts. And hopefully this orange one's going to be the better parts. Because I think the orange looks better than the gray. Alright, we're going to try a little bit different setup. Have this table. Set it up. Got a couple lights up. But that'll free up the workbench, and this will be more of a filming area. Just let me know if you guys are liking this setup. This is more of a quiet area in the shop. We'll work on this 450 first. Gotta drain the fuel out. I did have this one running. Tested it, got the dyno run. I'll put that sheet up in a second. But I'm going to drain the fuel out. Here's the results for the CS450. These are the baselines. And not a lot to get excited about. Just over 3 horse at 9,000 and 2.2 foot-pounds. Which, that's not too far off for most 40 cc's, 45 cc's. You can see, just super flat, broad power. Really nothing to get excited about. So we'll work on this 450. Like I said, these are kind of neat. They're real similar to the Husqvarna 350 in regards to their clamshell, but they have a bolt-on cylinder. Need to get a whole nother set of tools. This frees up a whole workbench, but I don't have everything over here yet, so I'll be back and forth for a little bit. I really kind of wish Echo stayed with these air filters here. You see, that's a real nice cartridge setup. As I mentioned earlier, this one came out of a parts pile. It says it's a 2012 model. I know I bought it off of eBay 4 or 5 years ago. But it's amazing how time flies when you ignore certain projects, I guess. There we go. Got the rod out. Now we can pull the carburetor off. Now I had built one of these 510s. Now on this chassis over here, they have the 510, 520, 530. Honestly, not sure what exactly is different. But a few years back, I had built a 510. And I put a different piston in it that was taller, because these are clamshells, remember. So I put a taller piston in it, cut the squish, rearranged everything. And that one actually ran pretty good. But, in typical Echo fashion, they love to use these itty bitty tiny carburetors. I mean, itty bitty tiny. Just a little WT series Walbro. Just a teeny tiny little guy. Alright, let's get this muffler off of here. Oh, looky there. Even has a cat inside the muffler on this one. But piston and cylinder and everything looks good. Alright, so we got the clutch off of this, which that one wasn't too bad. I already had it off before. so I can put our 3/8 rim on it. But we'll get all this stuff out of the way. Alright, get this oil pump zipped off. But yeah, one nice thing about this model is even though it's a clamshell design, the case is still magnesium. So that was part of the reason. Let's pull this recoil off. Okay, so the recoil is a bit different on this one. I plan on finding out at the same time you do if this engine actually goes in this chassis. Everything's telling me it should, but I've never actually done it. Get that right out of the way. So we got the full clamshell, bottom cap, a riser block, and a bolt-on cylinder on these ones. But it's all still housed in this magnesium housing. So we're going to try and pull this out. Then we'll tear that one down. And the other neat thing about these is they bolt in from the top. Let's get rid of this handle. Oh, it's my first time working on these plastic cutting boards. I guess if you've been a butcher or in a meat locker or something like that, you probably used them before. But I think I might actually like it. Anybody else have plastic tops on their benches? That's what this used to be. This used to be a meat cutting table out of our local grocery store that closed down. They had an auction and we bought up a bunch of stuff. Now we'll remove the cylinder. Nice and clean, hopefully it comes out. Right there. There we go. So this coil seems to be unlimited. Seems to have good spark. Which that'll come in handy down the road if we're going to try those funny fuels. They need a little bit more spark to burn off good. Alright, so I'm thinking we can pry this piece out. Just like so. And everything fits together nice. They didn't miss anything here. But that's it. All of its glory. Let's move. Now as far as 3-cube saws go or making a race saw go, I said these Echoes generally are not even thought of as a race saw. Now I had always wanted to, just like people do with the 350s, bolt on a different cylinder to this block. Because it removes right here. Take these 4 bolts out and you can pull the top off. Now maybe someday we'll try a cylinder swap on it. But for now, we'll go over some of the stuff I do like about it. This is a rather large intake flange. Really easy to make a block, put a larger carburetor on it. And same thing with this. That's a rather large exhaust flange. Let me grab a 346 cylinder and we'll compare some of the stuff. Alright, here's a true 346 cylinder. This is an OEM 44.3. This cylinder right here is what a lot of the 3-cube racers use. You can see the Echo cylinder. That flange doesn't really give up anything. By the time we get a block bolted on and get it all adapted, that's fairly close. And same with the exhaust. Doesn't really give up a whole lot to the 346. So this should be nice fun. So this should be nice and fun. I think it'll be an interesting test to see how close we can get one of these Echoes to the 346 in a race setting. Alright, now we'll just double check to make sure that the cylinder I do want to use will actually fit in our chassis. This is the one I messed up, but this is the actual 45 millimeter. I have a different piston swapped in there, but we'll make sure that it fits real quick, and I'll go over a few things. Yep, looks like it's going to fit the chassis just fine. Double check that the flywheels and everything are the same. They are not. We'll have to use the flywheel. It looks like the coils are going to be the same, but we'll double check that as well. But let me make sure that the flywheel fits on here. Now I'll have to check the specs, and I'll probably do that before this is all said and done. But I'm thinking that we have a slightly different stroke and a different bore size to go from these 45 cc's to our 50. But the flywheel seems to fit. Let me just hold this coil up here. Well, that doesn't mean that it'll work, but it should. Now, the coil looks right. So once we get to that part, we'll try both of them. So if you look at the ports in there, these are side fed quad uppers. Right there. There's the piston, nice large windows. If you look right there, these are actually ramps on the piston to time the transfers and direct them a little bit different. But that's got the window piston, and this is a bottom fed closed port cylinder. So it's actually a really neat setup, being all magnesium clamshell with the magnesium block. Be nice to fit something different on here. Be nice to fit something different on there, but it's not too bad of a setup. Nice big window, small pin, lightweight. Looks like the skirts are plenty wide, but we're not going to be using this setup. I just wanted to show what it did look like in case somebody comes across one of these 450s. Quad port, bottom fed, decent size intake and exhaust, and definitely looks like a good porting candidate. Now this is the cylinder we're going to use. This one to the 346. You see, nice large exhaust. And that same nice large intake flange. Like I said, if you look, you see this one's side fed. Quad uppers. Quad uppers. And if you look at the size and the shape, they really don't look too awful far off. So it has me super intrigued. See, there's the exhaust port in both of them. The echo is slightly bigger. The echo is slightly bigger bore, 45 millimeter versus 44.3. But like I said, I just super intrigued by this cylinder. So we'll move all this stuff out of the way and we'll rip down that 520 because I need that cylinder, and we're going to cut the head off of it the right way. Alright, we'll do a real quick tear down on this here 520. And once we get this one tore down, we'll be chopping the head off of this cylinder as long as it's good. Alright, now there definitely is some differences in these 5 series, 5, 10, 20, 30, and the 450. I'm finding out. I was thinking they were all pretty much the same, but they're definitely changing up some stuff. Let's recoil off. Now I got this one. This 520 I've had for a while yet too. And I always thought it was locked up because when I got it, the rope was hanging out a little bit. But it turns out it's just the pawls are froze solid on the flywheel. I don't know if it got all sorts of wet or something. But that's all it was. Spins over free. Seems to have compression. So I'm pretty happy about that. Get this out of the way. Coil out of the way. The shape's the same, everything else looks the same. One is black and one is gray. I'll have to see if I can find out what the difference is. They do have different numbers. So I'm sure there's something different. But hopefully we can swap them and play and see. Already knocked the clutch loose on this one. Looks like that bearing's locked up. Little cruddy in there. But the crank itself don't look bad. And being that that one's the same, I know I have another one somewhere. Get the handle out of the way. This handle's pretty messed up. See, this one doesn't have the muffler brace. Doesn't have the spot for it. That's interesting. So we got no muffler brace. Now hopefully this one's not a cat muffler too. No, it's got a little cage, but there's no cat in this muffler, so that's a good thing. Just need to get this washer freed up. Let me see if cleaning the crank a little better will work. Those elbows might come in handy for something down the road. Carb sure is on. Come on. Lines off. Another WT carb, just like the other. There. Now she can come out. Alrighty. Let's see how well this fits down in there. Oh yeah. Alright, here in a sec we'll pull this one apart, but just want to go over why I was thinking that this might not be a half bad chassis to build a racer off of. So we already went over the cylinder stuff. Nice bolt-on flanges, large size. Now the magnesium case, a lot stronger than the plastic. The engine is all held together. This isn't going to be as rigid as a full-blown split case, but being that it's actually held in a metal case, a nice pan. I like the way the cylinder looked. And with the flanges and everything, this gives us a nice box to position a larger carb. All sorts of room under here once we actually get the cover on. Let's set this one on, see what it looks like. You can see that carb box is wide open. All sorts of room for an intake block. We can get right in there, get right to it. And nobody would ever suspect one of these to be, I don't know, this is our first shot at a real race saw, so let's just say almost fast. Nobody would expect that from one of these old Echoes. So that's going to be the fun part. Trying to make this actually cut quick. So we'll pull this cylinder off, and we'll actually cut the head off of it. dual ring piston. Not looking too bad. This is definitely a different cranking rod, but everything looks good in here. See, it's got locating washers on the piston. A little bit of dome to it. But overall, it doesn't look too bad. This definitely looks like a good usable crank and piston. You can see this one's got windows. This is a dual ring. A little bit of dome on the piston. This one looks to be a 10mm rod, so that's a good thing. But everything nice and clean. Nice and clean down in the pan. No real marks on it, so I'm super happy to see that. I was thinking this was locked up. And the cylinder even looks good. So we're just going to chop right there above my finger, just the top two fins. Those are coming off. Then we can put down the expanding mandrel in the lathe. Be able to turn a diameter, that way the head will fit down in the bore. Alright, so this one's getting a little long. We'll stop it here. And we'll have a whole nother video of just chopping the cylinder and getting it ready for a head. So, hopefully you enjoy this race saw stuff. Let me know what you guys think. And thanks a lot, everyone.